Good morning, gardeners. Today we're going to talk about how we are all going to go ahead and have a great 2026 tomato season. Now, there's a couple of principles in order to have a great tomato season I'd like to share with you. Now, if you're already doing really good at growing tomatoes the way you are, I don't want to change that. That isn't what I'm after. But for those of you who do want to see a little bit more production, or you're having some problems, disease or whatnot, this is the video I want to share with you. And I also want to share the two tomato varieties that worked very well for me in high tunnel production, but they also worked very well for me when I was raising tomatoes outdoors. Now, aside from the pure basics of raising a tomato, we all know it needs fertilizer, it needs water, it needs sunlight. We understand those three principles. But let's talk about maybe what a tomato doesn't like and how we can benefit that tomato plant along the way. In order for us to have a great 2026 tomato harvest, it all begins right here at the beginning. Let's have a plan for our tomato season. Now, one of the first principles I have learned early on in life, that there are some plants that simply don't favor getting wet, and tomatoes is one of those varieties or one of those plants that if you could, it would prefer to stay dry as far as the leaves are concerned. More problems arise from a wet tomato than a dry tomato. So there are the differences between a gray mold and a powdery mildew. So let's understand that. So if you get a chance and you can get them under cover in some ways, at least over the top, I think we're all better off. Let's just be honest with that. It's a different game when you're raising them underneath of a roof versus raising them outside. The second thing is sun scald. Sun scald is, as much as they need sun, there's a thing called too much sun. Even with the peach growing, I am learning to make sure that the scaffolding on my peach trees, to not cut so much off that sun actually sunburns the scaffolding on peach trees. Well, the same thing applies with tomatoes. You don't want to have to cut off all of your vegetative growth to the point where the tomatoes are exposed to direct sunlight. You'll have yellow spots and streaks on them. So there's that to deal with. So we want to make sure there is some sort of shade to protect our plants, and it could be through vegetation, or it could be with artificial in the terms of a 50% shade cloth. 50% shade cloths are ideal. Now, another thing we could do is just plant our tomato plant in a location that favors a good shaded afternoon spot when the sun is most intense. Maybe you have a sunshine all the way up to, say, 1 o'clock, and then after that it goes into the shade a little bit, and the tomato plant has a chance to get some relief out of the heat, and hopefully by evening it can get back into the sun again. So those are something there that we can work on. So now we've already discussed the idea that the plants don't want too much shade. Also, they don't like to get the leaves wet. The next thing would be is how can we accomplish that if we go ahead and get the plant under some sort of a overhang or some sort of a shade cloth or plastic. How are we going to deal with the watering if we don't want to turn the sprinklers on? And I don't want to stand there all day with a garden hose dribbling it. As a matter of fact, you probably won't do as good of a job watering if you're going to be with a water hose, just because you're going to get tired and give up quicker. So using a drip line is what I highly suggest. They're affordable. They are reusable, providing the mice don't get into them and that type of thing. They can be laid on top of the ground. They don't have to be sunken or whatever like we have on our farm or whatever. You can actually set them on top. You can do that. So certainly a watering system would be very good. Something I want to talk about, and that's weed control as well, because weeds can certainly harbor insects. Not only that, but they also take away the nutrients from our plants. So we want to make sure that when we put down a fertilizer, that we want to turn right around and the fertilizer go to the intended species, not to a bunch of quackgrass and crabgrass and any other type of weed. Button weeds, there's a million of them. But those are some of the basics there that we can deal with. So I want you to go into this season, think to yourself, how can I deal with these types of plants, or how can I improve my situation? I really, if nothing else outside, if you're raising them outside and you are into the full sunlight, There are options of a 50% shade cloth. Look it up online. You can find them. They will be some that's affordable for you. You know, your shade cloth, we always see them over the top of the center of our greenhouses. Well, that's where the structure is anyway. But understand, the way your position in the world is, you may actually be able to do an offset shade cloth type of a thing to where that south exposure, that high south exposure, so the shade cloth might be a little bit offset. I've seen that on different operations, especially when you're dealing with like a 4 to 8 foot shade cloth to block the sun. That'll help out your tomatoes greatly. So let's go on into the greenhouse. We've already discussed we're going to have two varieties we're going to name for our picks for 2026 for high production tomato harvest. We're going to go in the greenhouse. We're going to look at that, and I'm going to share that with you in just a few minutes. Now, one of the lessons we learned last year is we were hit a pretty hard blow with gray mold. We didn't realize it's the first year we actually had it, that we were aware of. It hit us hard enough that it really set the plants back. By the time I actually discovered what it was, or had my brother-in-law identify what was wrong with that leaf, he identified as gray mold, and he says, look, if you're inside of a high tunnel, you're going to have gray mold. You won't have powdery mildew because we don't have rain from up above. So bottom line is that was gray mold. I did have to spray a fungicide. So if you're an organic grower, something like that, I highly suggest that you look for products like that will handle gray mold in your organic production. One of the best tips I could suggest to anybody is the Midwest Vegetable Guide, and also get the Midwest Vegetable Guide pesticide handbook. Pesticides sound like it's 100% insecticides and herbicides. It's not. They also offer organic solutions for you, so it's beneficial to even organic growers. So don't take that the wrong way. Just take it as it is, that there's a good tool out there that we can use to identify some of our problems and how to resolve it. That's the big thing. It's one thing to know you have gray mold. The next thing is, well, what can I do about it? How can I spray that or deal with that? So let's go ahead and get on with it. But let's be proactive in 2026, that we're going to have our spray tank ready for our fungicides. And I highly suggest that our spray tank for fungicides is separate from any other spray that we may use. If you put Roundup in your driveway or not, or any other spray combination, make sure that we keep that as a separate jug. Put a marker on there, fungicides only. And if you are having to use some form of insecticide or neem oil or whatever, write it on the side of that jug. It'll save you. It'll save you a crop, I guarantee it, because one day you're going to be in a hurry. You're going to grab the wrong jug, and you're not, more than anything, you're just not going to get accomplished what you set out to do. So let's get ahead of it. So the number one thing, aside from getting them plants started properly, is go ahead and get that gray mold or powdery mildew. Stay ahead of it this year. We can win this battle, if you will. So let's talk about fertilization. I think that's very important. In other words, we have to stay ahead of that. Now, Delia and I, with our tomatoes, we do put down some blood meal and bone meal when we originally plant our crop, when we put it in the soil. But we also use liquid fertilizer. Now, in our 30 by 72 high tunnel, what we want to get into our tomatoes is about 1 pound of nitrogen and 1 pound of potassium in our plants every week. We need to get that done. Feeding our tomatoes will give us nice thick skins. It'll create rapid growth. It'll fill them tomatoes out. We don't want them to go thirsty. We don't want to overwater. I know that's an easy thing to say, but the fact is pay attention to your tomatoes. We don't use a moisture guide ourselves. I use this here. I just stick it in the soil. And remember, even if it's moist, water is easier to go up than semi-dry soil, that type of thing. So don't make the plant work too hard at it. Make sure they have adequate water. But 1 pound of nitrogen and 1 pound of potassium in a 30 by 72 or per 370 370 plants in that house. So think about that. So you want to make sure you go ahead and get plenty of nitrogen, plenty of potassium into these plants. They'll respond and give you great big tomatoes. Believe me, they're going to look great for you. Aside from the 2 tomato varieties that we picked out, our spray program we're going to be dealing with to take care with our fungicide program. The next thing, in order to have great tomatoes and to have many tomatoes, is we're going to turn right around and we're going to encourage only 4 tomatoes to grow per cluster. Get in there, clip them off while they're young. Don't let them put any energy into it. Once you see you have 4 tomatoes to a cluster, clip the next 2 or 3 off, allowing all that energy just to go to those 4 and into new growth. Let it get into new growth instead of putting on all that energy into more fruit. We don't more fruit in that cluster, so we're going to do that. The next thing I want to talk about is spider mites and aphids. Now, that's something there you need to be prepared for. Spider mites and aphids are going to be a part of our life. No matter what you do, you come up with a good game plan. Again, I highly suggest, and even if you live in California or live in New York and you say, well, I'm not the Midwest. Well, believe me, the Midwest Vegetable Guide is for you too. It offers you conventional sprays, and it also offers you organic sprays. So make sure you get that. We need to have this already in our cabinet. The first signs of any of this, we need to be able to deal with it. So I'm going to tell you our experience with the soapy water. It felt like it was just stripping the oils off of the leaf. We did not like that. The soapy water trick was not for us. It really kind of damaged our plants. Wouldn't you agree, Delia?
Yeah, I mean, it looked good for like the first couple of days, but then the leaves themselves did not look healthy beyond that.
So we're not into the soapy water trick. So for those of you ready to jump into that bandwagon, that ain't for us. If it works for you, wonderful. So, but you need to find a program that's going to work for you in your area. And let's get rid of a lot of these myths. There's some really good producers out there that really, you can look at their stuff and you know what they're doing. If they're hiding stuff from you, you know, they're just saying how wonderful I am and they're beating their chest and whatever the case is. They're doing something that makes their plants look so good. So I like looking at a high tunnel with good mature plants. You can see the healthiness of their green and all that. If you're going with organic fertilizer, make sure you do that every week. Remember, find your source of potassium, find your source of nitrogen. That's important, 1 pound per week. So per 370 plants. That's what we're shooting for, to increase the foliage, increase the size of our fruit. So we definitely need to be doing that. In the last 5 years, gardeners, we have grown several varieties of tomatoes here on our farm. Determinants and indeterminates. Just trying to find the right ones to fit our operation that seem to work the best to offer 2 things: high yield and customer satisfaction. Those are the 2 things that are important. If we have our customers happy and our yields are high, we've accomplished our goals. Okay, for the 2 varieties that we're planting for 2026, Delia, why don't you reveal to everybody what it is we're growing?
BHN's 589s and Red Deuce.
And Red Deuce. Those are the 2 highest yielding. These are big tomatoes, aren't they, Delia? So they give you nice 10-ounce size tomatoes. They're heavy yielding. They make great green tomatoes, don't they? I mean, these are great green tomato sales as well. So that gets us on the board. So to recap our successful 2026 tomato production suggestions for you is we do love Red Deuce and we love BHN 589. Beautiful 8 to 10 ounce tomatoes. You can get them up to about 1.5 pounds. For the record, they can be big and beautiful, and they produce heavy yields on these plants. These are determinate varieties. You may have to go ahead and get them at a greenhouse. They're probably not going to be at a big box store, folks. You probably got to go to a greenhouse to find those varieties, but these are determinate varieties. The next thing we did is we also turned right around and we're going to be prepared to deal with gray mold or powdery mildew. We need to get that information. by finding that out in the Midwest Vegetable Guide and the Midwest Vegetable Guide Pesticide Handbook. Both of those are very important. So we're going to find out about our gray mold, going to be prepared for our powdery mildew. The next thing is we got to be prepared for insects. One insect in particular is aphids. That's a big one. The next one is spider mites. These guys are tremendous. The last thing is these armyworms got us last year. So make sure you're all prepared, whether you're going organic or commercial. Make sure your products will handle those 3 pests. If you do, you're going to be in pretty good. The last one's tomato hornworm, but we can pick those off of the plants going out at night with a black light and find those old tomato hornworms. They do glow. So the next thing we're going to do is going to make sure we fertilize properly. Per 370 plants, I want to get a pound of nitrogen and a pound of potassium in our tomatoes every single week. In addition, just to good watering practices. Remember, the more foliage, the more plants you have, the more needs of getting that moisture and fertilizers part of it. So at the beginning, I'm not going to put a pound in, but I am going to start increasing it. Maybe at the beginning I only give 1/10 of a pound, and then I start increasing. I start off with a more balanced, your 12-12-12, your 20-20-20. Go with a nice little blend of it, getting a small amount in and increase it. But once we start really having tomatoes, we need to push them tomatoes. We want good vegetative growth. At the same token, we need to have good tomatoes on the vine. So make sure every morning you walk along the rows and you tap your tomato posts. That will shake and help pollinate your plants. That way you get more tomatoes by doing that every day. I try to do it first thing in the morning while it's still cool. Before it gets up into the 80s and 90s, we like doing it somewhere around 70 to 75 degrees. That's a perfect temperature for that. So we're going to have that done. So all these tips can help us. There's a lot to go into it. Stay with us through this season. We're going to be probably sharing more information as time goes on. So those are my tricks for everybody. I hope that gets you more production on your home garden or commercial vegetable garden.